This video is going to talk a little bit about the two main types of cells. Again, cells are very small. They can be between 5 to 50 micrometers in diameter, so that's really, really small. Smallest known cells are about 0.2 micrometers in diameter, really small. There are a couple things that all cells have in common, no matter what organism they belong to at all. All cells must contain DNA and are surrounded by a cell membrane. That is all you really need to have a cell. And so phospholipid bilayers will make up the cell membrane. I like this picture because there's nothing else in the cell. It's just this lipid bilayer. Okay? And all cells must contain some sort of nucleic acid, usually in the form of DNA. There are two main categories of cells, and these categories are really based on whether or not they have a nucleus, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But a nucleus is going to be a membrane-bound structure that holds the DNA. So do they have that nucleus that holds their DNA, or do they not? Two main categories, and I'll talk a little bit about each. One of them is eukaryotes, where that EU prefix means true, and the karyote is in reference to a Greek word karyon, which means kernel, referring to the nucleus. So basically you have a true kernel or a true nucleus. Eukaryotes have a nucleus. Okay? Prokaryotes, pro meaning before, think prologue. Think about that, and the karyote is the same with that karyon. Prokaryote is basically before a nucleus. These organisms do not have a nucleus, so we'll talk about both of those a little bit more. Prokaryotes or prokaryotic organisms just throwing that sort of other version of that word out there, prokaryotic as an adjective. Prokaryotes have no nucleus. They do not have membrane-bound organelles, so they do not have these structures that eukaryotes will have that have their own membranes and that have special functions. They don't have those. Now, that's not to say they don't have any organelles. They do, actually. They're just not membrane-bound organelles. And of the 6 kingdoms that we have bacteria, or sometimes called eubacteria. Again, with that U prefix meaning true, and archaea, which are going to be extremophiles, things that like extremes. And that, of course, reminds us of hydrophilic, things that like water, that phile ending. Examples of organisms that are prokaryotes that you might have heard of: E. coli and Streptococcus pneumonia, both things that can be bad for your system, certain strains, and I would never wish upon anybody. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, they do have a nucleus, as we discussed. They have lots of membrane-bound structures called organelles, which we'll talk about in a bit. Some of these can be single-celled, some can be multicellular, and so kingdoms. There's a whole kingdom, a domain of eukarya, so a domain of all eukaryotes, and that includes the kingdoms plants, animal, fungi, and protists, which are single-celled for the most part, eukaryotes. So we are eukaryotes, all plants are eukaryotes, your dog is a eukaryote, that sort of thing.